Hey everybody, welcome back to Beer and Brands, Brand Federation's excuse to travel around Richmond to all the best breweries, drink beer, and talk about brands and marketing. My name is Matt Williams. I'm the managing partner at Brand Federation. I'm here with Kelly O'Keefe, the founding partner of Brand Federation. And today we are at Ardent Craft Ales here in Scott's Edition. And we have Ryan Kelly from Ardent with us, and he's been pouring beers. And what are we about to drink?
Got for you an IPAX, for you our Ardent Pilsner. These are two of our flagship beers, two of our most popular beers out in the beer garden and out in the market. The Pilsner here, it's a classic German, clean, crisp, bready lager. The IPAX is more of an East Coast style, so it's got that punchy tropical citrus hop character, but without any of the bitterness that you might be used to from those old school IPAs. And
fantastic.
We're loving both of them, and so is everybody around Richmond.
That's great. Right. We are regulars here, and we were laughing earlier that these are our orders, so you got them exactly right.
Nailed it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, enjoy.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right, Kelly, let's get down to it.
Great.
Lots of talk in the news over the past week or two about what they're calling a Great Resignation, right? The workforce leaving the workforce and not really coming back after COVID. And clearly that has massive implications for the way businesses run in the US and beyond. But it also has really interesting and important implications for brands. Like, how do we think about the way brand managers, CMOs, CEOs should think about the impact of their brands or on their brands of this Great Resignation that's going on right now?
Yeah, it's alarmingly rapid in its growth and its scale. I think the key for brands is twofold. First of all, it's always going to pay for a brand to be a great employer. And I think what we're learning today is the spokespersons for a brand are not just the people that we pay to talk about us on social media. They're the people who walk in our door every morning, they leave every evening, they are the employees themselves. And if they don't have a positive experience with the brand, if they don't love the organization, then it's pretty hard for the rest of us to love it. It will come out. And so I think we're seeing a lot more of those organizations that haven't been fair or kind to their employees losing out in that balance of power. And then the other thing is that if you are trying to attract the best and brightest, which you certainly need to be a strong business in today's world, you have to use those tools that brand managers have cultivated over decades of generating positive conversation about the brand. You need to use them internally as well. You need to make sure that you are marketing to that workforce, not just to attract a new workforce, great new workers, but also to retain the workers that you have.
Yeah. It's so easy to forget when we manage brands and we develop strategies that the people who are paying most attention to what we develop, the strategies and the executions of those strategies, are not the people outside of our company. They're the people inside of your company. They're
Absolutely.
the ones who live it and breathe it, and they come in every day. They spend 40 hours a week, sometimes more, working and thinking about that brand and thinking about that company and having an experience with that brand. If you're making a bad promise or the wrong promise, they're the first ones that are affected by it. But the flip side is true too, which is that if you hit on something that's really powerful about your brand, that's really true and really compelling, they're going to be the first ones to stand up and advocate for it and be ambassadors for it.
Absolutely. They are the front line. It's really hard. I mean, maybe it's not rocket science to say that if everybody who works for you hates your brand, going to get out.
Right.
It's going to get out. And maybe you need to take a look internally and find out, are we creating an environment that our employees love, that their families love, that treats them with respect? It's not about, paying them more. A lot of companies just try and solve this problem by throwing money at it. It's less about money and it's more about respect. And I think it's sort of time for this balance and power to have shifted.
Yeah, and it goes back to this premise that we've always adhered to, which is this idea that brands are most powerful when they're backed up by behavior. And that behavior is not just the behavior you exhibit to the outside world. It's the behavior that you exhibit to the inside world. How do you treat your employees? What kind of environment are you building? What kind of behaviors are you exhibiting to them? Because they'll become the ambassadors that take that affinity out into the world. It goes also to the process that we always use, which is so many people do this in a way that I think you and I believe is wrong, which is let's go outside and find out what consumers want, bring that information back in and become that so we can give it to them. And that's the exact wrong way to do it. It never works because it's not authentic. And if you want to be authentic, you have to start inside. You have to start with the people who know your brand best. And those people are your stakeholders, your employees, and your customers. And if the employees have a terrible relationship with you, it's hard to turn that into an authentic message that you can take into the market and build your top line with, because it'll just fall flat. It'll be a lie.
It absolutely is true. And it shows itself. It shows itself in customer service. It shows itself in the caliber of people that you can get. It's hard to get A-team players if you're going to treat them like dirt. You're going to end up with B's and C's and people who are really kind of checked out on the job. And we know that. The data that we look at, the research that we look at about this shift in the whole workforce and the resources that we need to make a brand vibrant are telling us that people are done with that. And they really want to be treated with respect. Now imagine that. And our brands did shift. The world of brands shifted last century from plop, plop, fizz, fizz, and a ring around the collar and other kind of catchy slogans, to now the brands that succeed are organizations that are not only good brands, they're good companies. If you want to be a good brand, you need to be a good company. And that starts with your workforce.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You mentioned the phrase balance of power. And it's interesting to see how the balance of power shifts when COVID takes the workforce away from the employers. And when that separation happens, to bring that workforce back means that the balance of power has shifted toward the workforce, because they now have the scarce resource. They are the scarce resource.
That's right.
The employers need them back to get business going again, and they're withholding that resource until some age-old wrongs are righted.
I love that way of looking at it, like this is a global reset of the working climate. I think it probably is. I think you're probably right about that, Matt.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we should all be celebrating. I mean, we should toast the fact that maybe, finally, we're going to have a work environment for the people in this country and hopefully others that values their work, that values their time, and treats them with a little bit of respect.
Well, I'll drink to that. All right, Kelly, let's talk winners and losers. Unfortunately, there's lots to choose from in the news right now. And the first one that comes to mind is Southwest Airlines. So Southwest has this slowdown last week, mysterious slowdown where they lost a huge percentage of their flights, canceled, and they came out with lots of messages about what happened.
Stranded a lot of passengers.
Right, stranded a lot of passengers, left a lot of people high and dry. What happened there? What's the implication for their brand of the slowdown?
Well, you'd have to say it's a loser, but this one hurts me because Southwest is one of the brands I've always admired. I think they've done a good job with their workforce. I think they've done a great job of delivering a unique and differentiated service. They approach their world differently than others, and so far they've been kind of the good guys. But as we know, you build up a reputation over your lifetime and you can blow it in a day. I really wish I even knew what the hell happened there.
Like, we still don't know,
No.
right? So the way I played it out in my head was, okay, there's a slowdown at Southwest. They cancel a whole bunch of flights. They come out with a statement that says, well, it was weather and air traffic control related.
Right.
And the other airlines go, well, the weather was bad for us too. We didn't have this problem. And then the air traffic controllers come in and say, well, it really wasn't us. We're fine. And it makes you say, okay, look, slowdowns are fine. I get it. Nobody expects every business to be perfect every day.
Right.
But now I don't know what to believe from Southwest. And their credibility gets hit.
It's incredible. We don't expect the businesses we work with to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we do expect them to be honest, especially the good brands. I still don't feel like they're being honest with us. I still don't feel like I've heard an explanation that makes any sense in this case.
Yeah, I still don't know exactly what happened. And the interesting thing that happens when you handle it the way Southwest did is it opens up the world for all kinds of speculation, right? So it's not weather, it's not the air traffic controllers. What is it? Well, it must be that the crews and the pilots are rejecting the vaccine. Now that's the story. And it's not even a story, it's just speculation about what it might be. So I think Southwest's bungling of the way they handled this thing has opened up, it's hurt their credibility, but it's also opened up a conversation that went on way longer than it had to, and potentially could damage their brand because the speculation ends up being worse than what the reality probably was.
I think that's right. I always think you have to run to a crisis. People are going to talk about you in a crisis regardless of how you handle things. But if you are the one who's talking first and most transparently, most honestly, apologizing for what mistakes you've made, and being very clear and honest about the cause of those mistakes, you'll bounce back very quickly. Unfortunately, if you're a little bit deceitful and shrouded, if you take your time, we saw this in the BP oil spill, we saw this in the Volkswagen emission scandal, we saw this in the Wells Fargo setting up false accounts for people scandal. In every case, people didn't come clean early. Yeah. And really, in every case, we saw CEOs fired, we saw management turned over, all because they weren't honest with us.
Yep.
We understand there are failures in any business, but we want people to be honest with us.
Yeah, that's right. I worked with J&J for a long time and got to know the people who managed the Tylenol crisis way back when. And when you talk to them about how difficult that was, they kept adhering to the idea that we have to tell the truth, we have to err on the side of safety, we're going to pull everything out, we're going to be as honest and transparent as we can. And it hurt that brand, but that brand recovered in a way that people trusted Tylenol more because of the way the company handled that first Tylenol crisis. And it's fascinating to talk to people about that because it all came down to speed, transparency, and making sure that everything you do puts the interest of your customers first.
No question. If you're a brand, the truth will set you free.
All right, this past week, William Shatner boldly went where only billionaires have gone, into at least near space, and floated weightless for a few minutes and was greeted, of course, by Jeff Bezos when he landed again. What do we think about that? What's the implication for Bezos, for Amazon, for Shatner as brands? What does this mean?
Kind of an amazing publicity stunt. Now, full disclosure here, I am as much of a Trekkie as you can probably be. Yes, live long and prosper to our audience out there. And for that reason, of course, I wish it had been Patrick Stewart and not Captain Kirk. But I'm going to let that go. I know
that's a different podcast.
Different podcast. That's right. We can go all night on that one.
I'm sure we could.
It's an effort to put a human face on what has been a hit or miss launch of this private space program. What we know is we've got a number of billionaires who are competing with each other to put people into space. Some of them with the stated goal ultimately of colonizing Mars.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, it's cool. I'm a big fan of science and science fiction, and going into space is cool. It does make me wonder if they're focused in the right areas, though, because we've got this planet already that actually it's pretty inhabitable. And we are losing its beauty, and we're losing those verdant pastures. And we're seeing a climate crisis sweep over it that puts it at risk. I think rather than focusing quite so much time, attention, and billions of dollars on inhabiting uninhabitable planets, we could probably do a little work in our own backyard, and that might be another way to do it.
Yeah, it's not like Prince William said, he wishes the billionaires would start to focus their money on saving our planet rather than finding others that we can live on.
Yeah.
I think he's probably right about that. An interesting thing happened when Shatner landed back on Earth and was greeted by Bezos. I don't know if you saw him speak to Bezos afterwards. It was the most heartfelt, emotional, beautiful articulation of what he felt when he was there and whether he saw death or not. I mean, it was amazing. And
tell me more about that.
So it was so interesting. You need to go on YouTube and find video of Shatner speaking to Bezos after he landed. And it's beautiful, and you can't help but be moved by it. And I think just that may have taken some of the edge off what felt like another one of the billionaire stunts that Bezos has, more than anybody, kind of become famous for. I guess Branson too. But
that's very
Shatner's reaction was beautiful. It was really, really amazing.
No, I can't wait to see that.
I think as a brand, Amazon clearly is tied as a brand to Jeff Bezos. They're one and the same. If Bezos starts to feel like a kind of a billionaire dilettante who's out, throwing his money around with hobbyist journeys to space, I'm not sure it has a positive effect on Amazon. It makes Amazon feel like a vehicle that's funding these little jaunts, these little hobbyist jaunts to space for Jeff Bezos, and that's not a good thing. If I'm Amazon's brand manager, I'm a little worried about this, and how it makes people feel about me.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think if I get back to a very practical brand point of view and step aside my love of Star Trek, I would have to say that we want to see out of our brands and out of the people who have benefited from the success of those brands, like Jeff Bezos, we want to see them concerned about the things we're concerned about. And we're concerned about how humans are treated in our current environment. We're concerned about the risk to our Earth and certainly to our population if the climate continues to change at an accelerated pace. And so it does feel a little bit tone deaf. I don't think they have connected the pursuit of space flight back to science as NASA has. You know, we all love NASA because they connect it to science that is practical on the Earth today. In this case, it feels a little bit more like space tourism. And for that reason, I think they've missed an opportunity to actually turn it into a story about how science, technology, and innovation can start to solve some of the problems that we need to solve here on Earth.
All right, Kelly, let's get to the real burning issue of the day.
The most important part.
Exactly, the beer and Ardent Brewery. So we're here with Tom Sullivan, the co-founder of Ardent. Thanks so much for having us.
No problem.
Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, welcome.
To your own place.
Yeah, exactly. Well, welcome to the podcast at your own place. Let's talk about Ardent as a brand.
Yeah.
When the people of Richmond and beyond hear the word Ardent Craft Brewery, what do you want them to think about? What are you about?
We started as a collective of homebrewers and in Churchill in a garage, and we just wanted to get out of our kitchens and do something a little bit more serious and brew. Kind of started as a grassroots group of people who wanted to brew beer and bring it to the people of Richmond. And we want that to carry through to what ultimately became when we opened in 2014 as just, thoughtful homebrewers at heart, makers of things that we care about, and that translates to the experience here at Ardent and, what you ultimately find in the glass.
That is awesome. So tell our millions of viewers out there where they can find Ardent Brewery.
Well, we package in grocery and specialty stores around Richmond and throughout Virginia now. Obviously, you can come to Scott's Edition, and we're open 7 days a week here.
That's great.
Noon to 10-ish, depending on the day. And that's probably all we'll ever sell to. Is just we'll be statewide in Virginia, and we'll be selling it right here in Scott's Edition.
Fantastic. Tom Sullivan, Ryan Kelly, thanks so much for having us here at Ardent. Kelly O'Keefe, thanks as always for spending time with us here.
Cheers, guys.
And this concludes episode 3 of Beer and Brands with Brand Federation. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you around Richmond at the next brewery.
Here's to your health.